Hi, I'm Phil Roundtree and welcome to the HowAudio.com podcast. Thanks for joining us today. In this podcast, we'll be checking in with Steve Soest, our resident guitar expert, as he gives us some tips and shows us some of his cool tricks on how to relic a guitar.
Now that we're done with the process on these two guitars, I want to go back over it and show you a little bit in detail what we did to each one. Now they've been reassembled, strung up and set up, and they're ready to play at this point. So first of all, the woodwork we did on here, I'm going to hold this up so you can see a little better. The wear marks where the arm wear would be. You can see this is down to the wood. It's through several coats of the lacquer. You can see the original, the red over here, and then underneath there's a silver undercoat, and then we've got the sealer. This is poly, as we discussed earlier, so it didn't really want to check on its own with the freezing method. So right here in this area you can see the checking that was done, and that had to be done by hand using razor blades, and I think we talked about that earlier. And anywhere there's a ding or anything, that was done with just any sort of a sharp tool that was laying around, a screwdriver, a hammer, a piece of wood, and some of it was actually knocked onto the edge of this table. But you can see that wear pattern here. Then in the front we've got little places where you'd get case bites, where you're putting the guitar in a hard case and that little tooth comes down and bites the guitar and puts these sort of dings in it. We've got some wear up in this area, some checking, some picking wear down here on the edge of the pick guard, and a lot of edge wear, any place you might see it. We want it to look as natural as possible, so it looks like a 40 or 50-year-old guitar and things that would happen to it if you weren't being very careful. Show the edges here. All of this mark is something you'll see around a jack plate usually, where the guy's trying to plug in and he's missed it with the plug. So that's what you get, these little tip marks in here from the tip of the 1/4-inch guitar cord plug. Up in here we've got some more dings and edge wear. In this cutaway here there's some stress marks and compression, and this is the checking that would result from that. Back here on the back there's checking here from the screw holes that you might find when somebody screwed down the back plate too tight. And these little stickers were kind of fun things to do. You might find a guitar that a kid has had and played in a metal band or something. He's put stickers on the guitar. So here's one up here. Here's another one back here. It's kind of worn and something that would happen just with wear on your belt or whatever. Again, more edge wear back here along the edge of the guitar, some down into the wood. This would probably be from getting too close to your drummer and the cymbals would cut into the thing. And then working up to the neck here, you can see the wear here. These type of guitars usually have a lot of wear on the end of the fingerboard, especially on a maple neck. You'll see actual gouging and stripes down here, and discoloration where the strings over the years have kind of vibrated here and worn out the finish. So you can see that. Then up here we've got some finger wear through the original lacquer. We've yellowed the lacquer with a tinted water-based wash. If you remember the way this neck looked originally, it was very white, and we kind of rubbed it over the top of this and then wore through it in these areas. And then right in here, if you can see this detail, this checking was done. As I mentioned before, this finish wouldn't check because it wasn't nitrocellulose lacquer, so these checks had to be all cut in by hand. And what I did is used a very sharp X-Acto blade and cut in through there, then rubbed a little dirt in there, and you can see it brings out the detail. This is some of the checking you get around pearl dots where the finish may have shrunk or the dot material expanded, and it causes checking around there as it releases from the finish. So you can see that detail there. And then again, going up here, we've got some finger wear at certain positions where you might have played it a lot. And then all the way up to the nut. Yellowed the nut a little bit again with a, this was done with a lacquer pen, a tinted yellow lacquer pen to make it look like aged bone. And you've got some more checking and wear up here. Then on the headstock, you can see where we've applied the decal and put a yellow wash over that. And we've got some marks here, light burn here where a cigarette might have been. A lot of edge checking and wear. You get a lot of wear up here on the end of the headstock from it bouncing against the floor or laying up against something. Same thing on the back here, some edge wear. Basically, you just want to make it look as natural as possible, just like something that's been abused. Back of the neck, you can see wear here from the back of the hand, constant movement on the hand wears through the lacquer, and then you get some wear here on the edges on the round over the edge of the fretboard. And that pretty much does it for what we did to the wood. And the metal would be the next thing we addressed, and that was done with an etching solution that's used for etching circuit boards, and we applied it to some of this chrome. Now sometimes the chrome doesn't want to respond to the etching, so you have to kind of rough it up with some steel wool and break the surface, and that's what had to be done on these knobs because they were so heavily plated. And then we got some pitting as that wore through the plating, and then I added another compound that added the rust. Obviously you don't have to put as much rust. This one looks like it's been underwater for 2 years. Same thing here, the side of the hand rests here, and the sweat from your hands will rust the springs, the heads of the screws, the height adjustment screws. You can see that. Then we've got a little bit of rust on this. This was actually done, I don't want to put any kind of etching solution on this metal because it'll get down inside the coil and destroy the pickup coil. So this was actually done with a brown marking pen and just kind of spotted some of that on there so it looks like rust. The edge of the pickup cover here on the front pickup where your hand might be, it commonly gets worn out, so this is worn down through the plating and actually into the metal. I rubbed that on a piece of nylon carpet and followed it with a little bit of steel wool to break the surface, and then I used some of the etching solution on there followed by the rusting solution, and you can see it gives it a really good natural wear mark on both ends of the pickup, and that's where you might find it naturally. Same thing with the screws here. The heads were all dipped in the solution and then wiped down. It's a good idea when you're done and it gets to the point where you like the way it looks, you need to wash it thoroughly so the process doesn't continue, otherwise you'll just have a pile of rust dust when you get done. Did the same thing here on the tuners. You can see rust on the tuner posts here and also around here, also on the grips on the back of the tuners where your fingers would make contact, the sweat would contact it and kind of wear it out. This was pretty tough plating on this, so it still has some shine to it, but there's a lot of spots on it. Then the next thing we considered was the plastic. Usually on these period guitars, the plastic tends to stay pretty white. Things like binding will turn yellow because it actually has a clear lacquer over it, and the lacquer ages turned into the binding yellow, but these pick guards stayed pretty white. So I've just introduced some wear here with steel wool, which is like pick guard or picking wear. And that was done with some steel wool and sandpaper. Then I scuffed up the edges a few places where you might have hit it here. This one here is cracked. You might see that from the plastic material shrinking. It actually pulls away from the screws and you'll get cracking here. So I did that here, and there's a little bit of a split up here. And on this particular one, the switch tip here, this is one of these old plastic or Bakelite switch tips. I cracked a corner off. It's hard to see, but that corner is broken off because you see that a lot where it hits something or fell off and got stepped on. And that's about it on this one.
Thanks, Steve. Well, that about wraps it up for this edition of the HowAudio.com podcast. Be sure to check us out on the web for all your audio, music, and software training needs. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you soon.